than people give them credit for.
Really valuable, and I could go for another 10 minutes. We didn't even get to HYG. We didn't even get to the high-yield bond ETFs, which have seen really big outflows and really big discount to NAVs, actually. But we have 30 seconds.
The Muni one. HYD had a 7% discount. Our Muni analyst, Eric Kazatsky, says that's a leading indicator. Look for the bonds to catch up. So if you see a discount, that's probably bad news for the underlying.
27 seconds, 26. Eric, we could talk for 10 minutes. I wish we could. Eric Balchunas, we will. Senior ETF analyst, Bloomberg Intelligence, joining us here in our interactive broker studios. Always wonderful to have him. Just want to bring you some headlines just crossing that Harvey Weinstein has been sentenced to 23 years in prison altogether for criminal sex act and more. We'll bring you more to it right now. Amy Morris has world and national news from Washington, D.C. Amy.
All right. Thank you, Lisa. Democrats are now saying that it is time for the White House to take bolder action to help the country contain the spread of the coronavirus. Bloomberg's Martin DeCaro brings us the latest.
Senate Democrats are preparing a letter formally calling on President Donald Trump to issue a national emergency declaration. Sources tell Bloomberg it would make more than $40 billion available to help state and local governments' virus response. FEMA would be able to spend money stored in the Disaster Relief Fund. Among lawmakers expected to sign the letter, Washington Senator Patty Murray. The Seattle region seen one of the worst COVID-19 outbreaks in the country. In Washington, Martin DeCaro, Bloomberg Radio.
The U.S. Treasury Department is considering extending the 2019 tax filing deadline beyond April 15th to provide relief from economic disruption caused by the coronavirus outbreak. Sources tell Bloomberg News officials have been discussing the idea while the Trump administration considers measures to relieve economic pressures. Infrastructure spending, a temporary payroll tax cut, and paid sick leave are among the proposals floated in a meeting between President Trump and Republican senators. Senate Republicans have turned their focus now to broad economic stimulus plans, while House Democrats are working on a bill that is more narrowly tailored to respond to the coronavirus. Former Vice President Joe Biden was the big winner in yesterday's primaries in Michigan, Missouri, Idaho, and Mississippi. Senator Bernie Sanders, won the North Dakota Democratic presidential caucuses. Washington State, though, still too close to call. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Amy Morris. This is Bloomberg.
If you promise to cover the latest financial and business news from Asia,
we're talking about social enterprises in Asian countries
with expert analysts who really understand Asia.
Aren't you encouraged with respect to U.S.-China trade?
Then you must be us.
Tell us about the trend within this part of the world.
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
What sort of fiscal stimulus do you think we'll see?
Tonight at 6 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Right now, Doctors Without Borders medical teams are operating in some of the most remote and dangerous corners of the world. When front yards become front lines, at the crossroads of conflict and epidemic, where there are no hospitals, that's where we operate. Your response is critical to our response in places where few others will go. That's where we operate. Learn more at doctorswithoutborders.org.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL Scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Matt Le Tissier, what did you make of that performance today?
Well, it really was a game of two halves, to be honest, Jeff. Leicester came out in the first half really...
Letiz?
What's up, Jeff?
Run for it!
What the...
Move over, football. Cheltenham coming through. And Sky Bet are on the charge with a roaring first race special every day of the festival. Sky Bet, that's betting better. Applies to first bet on the first race at Cheltenham on the main race market only. Place terms apply. Eligibility restrictions. Offers vary each day. Check site for details. T's and C's apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn. When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep the top economic experts in a conference room next to your office without having to feed them?
Do we need better optics? Do we need some substance? Do CEOs care about ESG?
We have seen quite a lot of stimulus pumped into the system already.
It's the biggest warning yet about the financial risks of climate change.
Now there are more ways to hear us. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and at BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
25 years ago, NJIT graduate Dick Sweeney co-founded Keurig Green Mountain, a company whose incredible innovations changed the way the world brews a cup of coffee. Today, he lectures widely on business leadership and is a strong advocate for NJIT's work to combine business education with the power of STEM.
NJIT is definitely fostering innovative thinking for budding entrepreneurs simply because that's the world we live in. NJIT is producing students that have been trained, educated, and given the business acumen to be a contributor to a company. The distinct mission is to develop great STEM scholars. The attributes I've always looked for in team members are heart, smarts, guts, and luck. So we want people with passion, intelligence, courage, and never discount luck. The student coming out of NJIT has experienced all of that.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
The S&P sinks more than 3.5%, and that wipes out more than half of yesterday's surge. This after President Donald Trump failed to deliver on his promise for a sweeping stimulus package to fight the economic effects of the coronavirus. We look at the numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P is down 3.7% now, down 105. The Dow is down over 4%, down 1,013. And the NASDAQ is down 3.3%, down 273. The 10-year is currently up 8/30 seconds. The yield is 0.77%. West Texas Intermediate crude oil is down 3.8% at $33.03 a barrel, with COMEX gold down 0.7% at $16.49.30 an ounce. The dollar yen, 104.70. The euro, $1.12.78. And the British pound, $1.29.05. While Disney shareholders greeted the new chief executive officer at an entertainment annual meeting by narrowly approving his executive compensation plan, only 53% of the shareholders approved the plan. Right now, Disney is down 5.3%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, it seems to be a race as to how quickly Wall Street strategists can downgrade their expectations for earnings. The latest, Goldman Sachs chief strategist for U.S. equities, David Kostin, said the 11-year-old bull market U.S. stocks is about to become history, and he now predicts that earnings will drop at least 12% in each of the next 2 quarters due to plunging oil prices, as well as the spread of the coronavirus and people staying at home and not traveling. The question is, how do you invest, right? I mean, this does expect sort of a decline in equities going forward. How long do people expect it to go on for? Is this a time to be buying or just to get out of the market? And Bill Smead has tons of experience with all of this as the CEO and Chief Investment Officer at Smead Capital Management, which has more than $2 billion of assets under management, joining us from Seattle. Bill, I'd love to get your thoughts around that. How do you sort of reframe your investing assumptions based on the events over the past month or so?
Well, thanks for having us, and this is a great time to think about those kinds of long-term things that are the most important. So what we feel this is from an investment standpoint is the exacerbation of a trend that's been in place for a good 5 to 10 years, which is the anemic economy scenario where people don't want to own companies that are tied closely to the Main Street on the ground economy, and instead want to own the successful technology companies that have don't seem to have be impacted by where people are. Right? If you're stuck at home, you might still be sitting on your Facebook, maybe more than even normal. So we, from a historical standpoint, this looks to us like Paul Volcker tightening credit in 1981, when bonds were already so oversold and so miserable. The bond market had been terrible for 30 years, and in comes Paul Volcker, and he tightens credit, and bonds get slaughtered. Stocks were already cheap. They got slaughtered again. And Y2K, the Y2K thing caused people to buy a whole bunch of technology stuff in 1999 and get really excited about technology right before the end. And in this particular case, growth investments have been doing dramatically better. Value holds most of the stocks that are economically sensitive. Therefore, what's getting punished the most at the end of a major trend is the thing that was already cheap.
So, Bill, is there a valuation point here for the market that you think investors should be kind of keeping their eye on to try to get a sense of where the bottom might be?
Well, that's a great question. If historical situations like this have any merit in analyzing it, and remember, you're talking about an exogenous event that no one could see coming, and then Saudi Arabia took out the Amazon playbook and decided to use their position to undercut everyone else's price and put them out of business. Those two things happened. In other words, the Saudi Arabians would have never been able to do this if the coronavirus had not greatly affected demand around the world for oil and gas.
Right now,
So,
go ahead.
So these two just completely wild, historically unusual things are hitting simultaneously. So what you should expect is that investments you make now in the areas that people are the most afraid of right now are likely to produce the highest returns over the course of the next 10 years. And the investments that they run back to immediately and have sold way less, that they've got the most confidence in, are highly unlikely to be the best investments of the next 10 years.
Are you basically saying buy stocks, sell bonds?
Well, first of all, mathematically, a 10-year Treasury has zero chance of investment success in the next 10 years. Unless you consider 0.7% return and investment success. If someone's retirement goals get matched with 0.7% return, or a pension plan or an endowment works at 0.7%, so that's DOA, right? This is the antithesis of 1981. In 1981, the treasuries were 13% to start the year and went to 15%. Bond investors got slaughtered, but those 13% bonds for 30 years were one of the best investments you could possibly make, even though you had to get abused for a while in the first year that you owned them. And that's the nature of this. The courage to own things that will do well over 10 years, but make you feel like a fool in the short run.
And talking about just the pain, the market has rolled over, taken a leg lower even still, with the S&P now down more than 4% and the Dow, Paul, down 4.5% as we sit here.
Yeah, looking at the VIX here, out 6 points to 53. So you talk about fear in the marketplace, Bill, that's kind of a good example here. So just real quick, Bill, what are some of the things, what's your bottom line advice to your clients and your investors right here?
Well, first of all, for people that are going to be investors for the next 30 years, especially people that have been, have been sitting on the sidelines, to begin some kind of dollar cost averaging here looks like it would be a fantastic idea, because the virus itself is no matter what the ultimate totals are, right. And we all feel terrible because we hate that anyone would die from this, but we will kind of have a really strong feel within 30 to 60 days what the total of this is going to be. And at the point that starts to decline, that's when investors will get their legs back underneath them. So, so that our view, of course, is take the long term. We're
going to have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for your opinions here. We really appreciate it. Bill Smead, Capital Management.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks are plunging. Investors looking for a policy response from the Trump administration as the coronavirus threatens economic growth. The latest sell-off comes with no sign of the stimulus package promised by President Trump. Plus, the European Central Bank warned of an economic shock similar to the financial crisis unless leaders act urgently. Hilton is pulling its guidance for 2020 because of the effects of the coronavirus, joining other travel companies that are taking a hit from the epidemic. McDonald's will offer staff at corporate-owned restaurants 2 weeks' pay in the event of a quarantine. These locations, however, account for about 5% of total U.S. locations, with the rest being franchised. And Tesla will build its in-development Cybertruck at a new plant in the U.S., likely triggering a state-by-state competition. CEO Elon Musk did not elaborate on which states Tesla is considering, beyond saying the company will pick a location in the central U.S. Courtney Dunhope, Bloomberg Radio.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies. Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
On average, in London, a scooter or motorbike is stolen every hour. Make sure it's not yours. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
At the Bank of Santander, they've created Stan, a smart bot that can predict the future of remortgaging.
I'll read Stan. Will my mortgage rate go up?
1955 was the last time Newcastle won the cup.
No, try not to mumble.
Playing, let's get ready to rumble.
Meanwhile, at Santander, they can't predict your future, but they'll help secure it with great mortgage rates fixed for up to 10 years. See what's possible at Santander.
Early repayment charges apply. Lending subject to status and criteria. Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
Petrol or electric? Why choose petrol and electric? Discover the BMW plug-in hybrid and electric range. 14th to the 21st of March. Visit your BMW retailer. Sometimes electric, always BMW. Participating retailers only.
Switch to Sky Broadband Superfast. It's so reliable, we'll guarantee your speeds or money back. And for a short time only, it's just £25 a month for 18 months with a £19.95 setup fee. So stay connected with super reliable, super fast broadband at a super low price. Switch or recontract today. Search sky.com. Offer ends 12th of March. Prices may change during this period. Includes Sky Pay As You Talk. Sky Fibre areas only. Speeds vary by location. 1 month subscription refund if speeds drop below minimum download speed for 3 consecutive days. Claim twice in minimum term after first 14 days. See sky.com/guarantee.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
This week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, we'll ask whether America is ready to elect a Democratic Socialist for president. Plus, the science fiction legend William Gibson on climate change and the end of the future.
How often do you hear the phrase, the 22nd century? Don't hear it. We no longer have that sense of cultural anticipation.
Listen to this episode of the New Yorker Radio Hour on TuneIn today.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up in the next half hour, we'll be talking about President Trump's plan to combat any potential slowdown to the coronavirus or that coming out of Congress. What are the next steps? Plus, we'll take a look at oil in the wake of Saudi Arabia and Russia's price war. Right now, though, let's head over to Greg Jarrett for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Wait, what's that smell? It's hand sanitizer. More of it, and the need for that hand sanitizer is what's causing concern, and that's what's putting markets in the red, at least part of it. Oil's the other thing. Stocks have plunged. Treasuries are up. Investors are hoping for details on a policy response from the Trump administration. Oil's rebound from its biggest crash in a generation halted after Saudi Arabia said it would boost its production capacity, and the United Arab Emirates joined in raising supplies. Jeff Curry, Goldman Sachs Global Head of Commodities Research, tells Bloomberg oil, in his opinion, has further to go down.
If you end up backing up oil into the mid-continent of the U.S., you could see, markets like WTI, Midland, really disconnect to the downside. So we're far from being out of the woods here. We think there's a lot more substantial downside risk.
Right now, WTI is down 2.5%. We'll look at more of that in a minute. But right now, we check the markets every 15 minutes. S&P's down 4% down 115. The Dow is down 4.4%, down 1,090. The NASDAQ is down 3.6%, down 303. The 10-year is currently up 10/30 seconds with a yield of 0.76%. Back to West Texas Intermediate, it is at 33.50 a barrel, as I say, down 2.5%. COMEX Gold is down 0.5% at 16.5130 an ounce. The dollar yen, 104.74. The euros, $1.1283, and the British pound, $1.2899. Boeing plans to draw down the full amount of a $13.825 billion loan as early as day after tomorrow, as the plane maker is fighting the worldwide travel disruptions from the coronavirus. Right now, Boeing is down 10.5%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
A story crossing the Bloomberg terminal earlier this morning. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is pressing ahead with plans to vote Thursday on an economic plan to help workers affected by the coronavirus outbreak, as President Donald Trump has yet to produce a detailed proposal that he promised on Monday. To get the latest on what's going on in the Beltway, we welcome Laura Davison, congressional tax reporter for Bloomberg News, joining us from the D.C. studio for Bloomberg. So, Laura, it's great timing to have you on here. Give us kind of an overview of kind of what type of fiscal response we may get from the government. The market is really on pins and needles waiting for this.
So yesterday, all the talk was about a payroll tax cut, and that was really met with some cool reception on the Hill, both with Democrats and Republicans. Republicans, of course, are a little bit more open to the idea. Democrats, have said that this is basically a non-starter, and really the idea that's taking hold today is the idea of delaying the April 15th tax filing deadline, so that businesses and individuals would have more time to both file their tax returns as well as pay any liability that they have due.
Laura, this boggles my mind. I'm genuinely having a hard time understanding the logic behind this, because if people delay having to pay their taxes, they still have to pay said taxes, number one. And number two, anybody who's going to be paying taxes and not necessarily getting a rebate probably is in a position to spend the money and might not need the extra help. Not to mention there are a lot of question marks. Would this do anything stimulative?
So it might. Treasury Secretary Mnuchin says that this would bring about $200 billion of liquidity into the economy, and it's sort of short-term liquidity that they, if businesses are hard hit, they're trying to figure out what they're doing. They have a little bit more time to make those payments, and they're not paying interest on those versus they were taking out a loan. Those numbers have not been independently verified. This would really probably be more of a benefit to companies rather than to individuals. A lot of people do get refunds, and as we've seen from the numbers of people who have filed their taxes already, about a third of the tax returns that the IRS is expecting are already in. So this would really only affect, kind of the last, 2/3 to half of taxpayers, and those that you would see delay, and those that typically do delay, because the IRS already offers some ability to delay filing your return, that you still have to pay by April 15th, are the people who owe money versus those who are getting money back.
So, Laura,